Hey, what's going on, Restoration Nation? Rico Garcia here, back again with an amazing episode. But before we dive in, look, I want to go ahead and make you a very special offer. For a very limited amount of time and for a limited amount of students, I've opened up the Total Ads Domination course and coaching program for a limited time. So what is Total Ads Domination? Look, if you've ever wanted to learn about marketing, today's type of marketing, the marketing that's actually going to move the needle for you and your business, make sure that you go ahead and sign up for the course and get the coaching program. So what is Total Ads Domination? Total Ads Domination is a step-by-step video course on how to totally dominate paid ads like Google and Bing and things of that nature. What we're going to show you in this course is real time-tested and proven strategies that have worked not only for my company that took us from $0 to multiple seven figures in a very short period of time, but that's also been effective for roofers and for public adjusters and for mold assessment companies and for everything in between. If you are a home service pro, then this system can work for you. No questions, ifs, ands, or buts about it. So what we're going to do is in the course, we cover everything that you need to know, from how to find your top competitors, and then more importantly, how to find your competitors' top winning ads. In other words, how you can piggyback on other people's success and save yourself thousands of dollars in the process, and also months and months of testing. We show you how to go ahead and write killer ad copy that actually converts. We go ahead and show you how to set up the killer landing pages, so that way when people land on your landing page, guess what they do? They actually take action. Everything that you need to know from A to Z is going to be outlined in the course. But then on top of that, for a limited amount of students and for a limited amount of time, what we're going to do is we're going to also add the coaching aspect to that as well. So not only do you have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week access to the pre-recorded modules, and you have lifetime access to that, so you can pause it, you can rewind it, you can take notes, you can watch it 1,000 times if you want. But then if you, for whatever reason, you get stuck, every single week we get together for about an hour where you can show us the back end of your account or whatever it is that you're currently having an issue with, and we can help you tackle that right there, and tons of other great bonuses. But if you want more information about that, make sure that you check out the video description below. There's going to be a link. Go ahead and check that out. Or if you're listening to the podcast, it's going to be located in the show notes. So make sure that you check it out if you want to go ahead and dominate marketing, or if marketing has ever been intriguing to you, or if you just want to go ahead and bring marketing in-house, or if you just want to be better at outsourcing marketing. If you want to learn how to speak that language to know if you're really getting what you're supposed to be getting, then it all starts with the basic knowledge that comes with understanding marketing the right way. So hopefully you go ahead and take us up on that, because it's going to be totally amazing. So today's episode, let's talk about that. Today's episode, we're joined by Kristy Sifford from Wylander, and we're going to be talking about recruiting. We're going to be talking about hiring and, how to find these high-level individuals that we need in our organization. And we also talk about some of the mindset that's necessary for us business owners on how to look at recruiting and how to look at hiring and how to have our systems in place for when we actually do find that superstar that we want to hire, right? And a lot of times we've seen this where we know that we need a potential employee or this top level executive, but we wait way too long before we even start the recruiting process. Or even worse, once we actually find that amazing individual that could really help us move the needle for our organization, we don't quite have an onboarding process that's useful to them to make them feel like, wow, I'm home. So Justin and his wife, we go ahead and take a deep dive into all of these things and more in today's episode. But before we dive in, I want to give a big shout out to C&R Magazine, sponsor of our show. Also want to give a big shout out to Company Cam for sponsoring the show as well. But as per usual, we'll go ahead and get a little bit more into Company Cam a little bit later on in the episode. Also, one last thing, make sure that you keep an eye out for something very special that is coming to Restoration Nation, and that is the Public Adjusting Corner as well as the Legal Corner. So as you know, because you've been following the show and you've been listening to our episodes, we typically do 4 episodes a month. We drop every single week, we drop a brand new episode. But now what we're going to do is we're going to have a Public Adjusting Corner, which is going to be talking about new things on the horizon with public adjusters and, showing us case studies and how we as restoration contractors or roofing contractors or even public adjusters, things that we should potentially keep in the back of our minds, or how to properly put together files and things of that nature so that we are a bigger asset to our customers. It's going to be tons of fun. And these are going to be once every month. We're going to have the Public Adjusting Corner, and then we're also going to have the Legal Corner, where we're going to be joined by an amazing attorney who's going to be showing us again what things are coming down the pike, what things we need to be paying attention to, and then of course tons of other things that are related to making your business that much better and protecting your business, protecting your assets. So we're really, really excited. Make sure that you keep an eye out because we are going to be dropping some gems here on social media to give you some more information about who our amazing guests are going to be. So we're really excited about that as well. And we're also going to be rolling out a phone number, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, the guest, right? I mean, 90% of what it is that we do here, if not 99% of what we do here, is, to provide you with as much value as we possibly can. So in light of that, what we want to do is we want to actually hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your questions. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be rolling out a phone number to where you can just pick up the phone, shoot us a call, and you can leave a voicemail. And if you choose to leave the voicemail, what we could do is we could always play that back on the podcast as well. All you got to do is just say, hey, yeah, sure, we use this on the podcast, and then we'll go ahead and insert that as well. And then also we're going to be providing you with an email in case if you don't want to go ahead and call into the show. No big deal. There's going to be an email, which is going to be in the video description below as well, where you can go ahead and type out your questions, type out your comments, and then we'll give you a shout out, not only here on video, but also on the audio podcast as well. And this is just going to be a great way for us to interact and for us to hear from you what some of the things that you'd like to know, or some of your commentary or some of your experiences, and we'll go ahead and tie that in, which I think is really exciting. So make sure that you keep an eye out for all of these good things. And on that note, let's dive into the podcast.
Owning any type of restoration business is demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for jumping on today and helping us, dominate our industry. Do me a favor, go ahead and kind of fill in some of the gaps on the introduction, so that way everybody knows exactly who you guys are.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Kristy Sifford. I'm one of the owners of Wylander. We're a recruiting company. We recruit specifically in the restoration industry. We have been for the last 10 years, part of Wylander for about 8. And, that's it. I would say that's so fill in the gap.
And I work for her. So
Fair enough. Right. It's usually how it works, right?
Yeah. No, we got into this industry almost by accident. We owned a flooring company in Dallas, and one of our largest clients approached us and said, "Hey, we want to form a flooring company with you." So I was out on the jobs every day, meeting project managers, estimators, providing flooring, right? And so I learned what ITEL was, and I learned what Xactimate was. This is 20 years ago. And I was really, really inspired by the industry. It's like, wow, this is really cool. The insurance is going to pay you a rate, a fixed rate. You don't have to create an estimate and guess where you are. Well, I wish it was that simple, but that was my understanding at the time. So anyway,
Right.
yeah, 20 years in, we started the flooring, and here we are working knee deep every day with many owners across the United States.
Nice. So finding talent, that's like the name of the game, right? And we were kind of talking off camera, and I'm sure that you guys have heard this a million times, where everybody's so concerned about the labor shortage, right? And everybody's complaining about the labor market, and they can't find the right people, and there is no good people, right? So let's kind of like break this down chronologically, because I think that's important, right? Number one, what kind of mindset is really necessary for the owner or the hiring manager? And what kind of things should they have in place before they even start reaching out to an organization like yours? Like, is there a certain time frame or certain policies that they should already have in place saying, hey, you know what, if we need talent, or if we ever come close to whatever this threshold is that I have set internally, this is kind of what our procedure should be like in order to start finding talent. So can we kind of like take it in a chronological fashion?
Yeah. So first of all, our clients range from $500,000 to over 100 million a year. Some of our clients have multiple locations in different states, and some of our clients have been in the industry for 3 to 4 years, and they're looking to hire their first salesperson or first project manager. So we always have a consultative approach. We're never going to assume that someone, a business owner, is squared away in their hiring department. Sometimes we work with HR people. We never even talk to the owners. But I will tell you what we call is kind of dysfunctionality. We see it across the spectrum, right? And as long as owners are willing to learn and improve, we'll work with anyone. Ultimately, if they're not, and we're just not a fit, we're not a fit. But what we really like to see, to answer your question, is 3 months out, before you need that role, start identifying what it is you're looking for in that person. Get on the phone with us, and we'll tell you what you need to do if you're not already prepared to prepare for that person coming on. Do you want to add?
No, I mean, that's a good point. I think we talked about it off camera too, having your onboarding in place. You don't want to hire somebody and have them walk in their first day and you have no idea what you're doing. You don't have a training plan in place. You don't know who they're going to be talking to first, who's going to be doing their HR paperwork. And right now, like you said, the shortage of people, they have their choice of where they want to go. And they're going to, if they choose a company that isn't squared away and the onboarding is really terrible and their first day, nobody knows if they're coming or going, they're probably going to leave that job in the first week and take the other offer that they declined. I mean,
and we'll take a deeper dive into the whole onboarding process, right? But you don't even have an issue with onboarding yet if you don't know that you have a pre-hiring issue, right? So, and I think that a lot of people are like, oh, wow. And again, even HR departments, like, and this is like, I think it's universal, right? It doesn't matter if you have one truck and a couple of guys and, or if you've got, a $10 million, $15 million company. A lot of people just wait to the very end. So the mindset, I think, is really important, or the systems, or maybe, some indicators that you might say that you might have set for organizations to say, hey, you know what? I think that in 3 months, I'm going to need to fill this particular role. What should that mindset, or that culture look like when, to make these transitions easier?
Yeah. So ideally, we want to plan for this. And so what we like to see is a job plan created for that role. And we really encourage owners to get key people involved in your business who have your interest in mind, the best interest of your business in mind. Every owner has their right-hand person. So involve that person and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about job plan for an estimator, right? And, bounce it off, include things, scratch things, whatever, perfect it to what you think is perfected, then get on the phone with us and we'll say, hey, that looks great, or here's some things you may want to consider. After you've created your job plan, it's a really good idea to start forming an interview committee inside your business. So again, those key people, maybe it's you and one other person as the owner, or maybe it's the HR person with the head of operations and the head of your mitigation department, right? If you're hiring for mitigation. So develop a list of questions. Again, we can help you with this, but develop a list of questions that you want to make sure you ask in the interview. Practice an interview, right? You've got these people,
Right.
and you don't want your first run to be, a live interview. Bring in a newer technician and interview them, right? Get comfortable transitioning from different people in that interview committee and asking questions, because you really want to make sure that person who you're interviewing has comfort in you, right? As a business, do I really want to work for this company? So have those interview committees set, have those questions set, practice those interviews, and then, hopefully you're at that point where you can start interviewing people. Culture is huge. Hire for culture. 85% of people's success is whether you like them or not, and the rest is just skill. We can train skill all day, every day, but we can't train whether someone's likable or not, right?
Well, it goes to when we talk to owners when they're hiring general managers or controllers, those key executive folks, if they don't enjoy their company just at a lunch or at a dinner, they're probably not somebody that you're going to want to have beyond their executive management.
Yeah,
exactly.
It is.
Right.
Especially for, like she said, those upper level roles, when you're hiring for a branch manager, definitely take them to lunch, right? See how that person interacts with the wait staff, because the wait staff is kind of a third person, right? No matter what, at the end of the lunch, they're never going to see the wait staff again. So how are they treating those people? Because ultimately, once the honeymoon period is over, that's how they're going to probably be treating staff underneath them.
Right. Totally agree. How much of and again, you guys have such good data when it comes down to this, because that's what you do. So you're talking to the hiring managers, you're talking to HR, you're talking to owners in a lot of cases. What I've noticed is there is more of a need sometimes, or at least the mindset of filling a role and you're willing to give up certain requirements, right? So ideally, when you start putting pen to paper and you say, you know what, this is what I want in my hire. I want this quality, this quality, this quality, Absolutely. This quality, this quality. Let's say that you've got a total of 10 qualities. Well, then great. Now you've been on the job market or on the job hunt for that position for, let's say, a couple of weeks. And then finally someone walks in the door and they've got, some of the top things on your list, but they're 8 out of 10. And people are like, okay, cool. We'll just go ahead and hire you and we'll try to work on those other 2. Do you believe that being very, very selective and to commit to that list is an important aspect? Or do you think that there needs to be some degree of flexibility when it comes down to making your hire?
That's a great question. I think it depends on what the flexibility on your list is. I would never bend to the overall culture of your company, your morals, values, and ethics of that person. They have to share those with your organization. An example for something that you might bend on, if you're hiring a mitigation project manager and they have 5 years of emergency service experience, they're great with customers, they're good with computers, but they don't know how to use Xactimate, that's a software program. You could probably teach them how to use that software program. We've seen, hires come through the door where they had 20 years of Xactimate experience, but they were a total jerk on the phone, where I wouldn't send them to anybody,
right,
to talk to.
Right.
So I think it really depends on what those qualities are. I like to call it the DNA of the candidate. And we have a saying here in our company is everybody had their first day in the restoration industry. Everybody had their first day as a lawyer. Everybody had their first day as a teacher.
The best have their first day.
Yeah, the best have their first day. I think part of those qualities is our owners or hiring managers, some of them are looking at their business in a rearview mirror and they've grown $1.5 million and they know that their estimator can only write so much business in a year. It's coming, and when they're ready to hire, they're already underwater. So in their mind, they're like, I don't have time to train. I need to hire somebody with Xactimate. So they're giving up that culture to get that software piece, when in the end, it ends up being a total disaster and they've spent more money than they should have, and the guy was a total train wreck.
So we definitely think, Rico, that you should have some non-negotiables, right? So have those non-negotiables, print it out, post them on your door, and everyone in the company should know what those non-negotiables are, right? So, if someone shows up drunk to the office, that should be a non-negotiable, right? You're terminated. We won't tolerate that as a company. So in the interview process, have your non-negotiables. But I will tell you, again, 85% of someone's success is based on if they like them or we like them. So training someone on Xactimate, if they've got all the other boxes checked, that shouldn't be a big deal, right?
Right.
We're getting younger and younger in our industry, and those people have grown up with not only computers in the house but phones in their pocket. So the old slower IT candidates, if you will, they're becoming fewer and far between.
Right. So let's just pretend for a second that we have the system in place, right? As an owner, as a restoration owner, we've got the system in place. Great. Now we've gotten to the point where we're like, okay, let's go ahead and reach out to, an institution like yours. And now I say, hey, I'm looking for this particular type of, role to fill. Mm-hmm. Once you kind of get to that point, what does the rest of the journey look like? Like, where do you guys already have a network of people that you've been kind of romancing, or are you kind of starting from scratch? And then what does that process look like for you?
So real quick, in the initial call, we call our discovery call. You tell me you're looking for an estimator and he's got to have 10 years of Xactimate experience and he needs to bring $1 million a minimum worth of business, a book of business. We're going to say, you know what, we're just not a fit. Right. So in that discovery call, we're going to make sure that your expectations are what we would call realistic, right? Everyone wants that estimator. Everyone also wants the technician. Technicians really just don't exist, right? So we're looking outside the industry, pest control industry, window installation industry, all these other industries that cross over, right? So provided that those things align and we're a good fit, then we don't really have a book of candidates. We have thousands of candidates in our database. Certain markets, we have hundreds of candidates. But when you're talking about culture, when you're talking about these little micro items that business owners are looking for, again, we've got a whole spectrum, right? Over 100 million to 500,000. Caliber of candidate with caliber of client. I can't send a guy who's worked for Belfor or Blue Sky or whatever the big companies are, who's used to doing, $2 million worth of restoration work a year to a $2 million a year company, right? Unless the $2 million a year company owner is like, I'm looking for a partner.
Right.
And then again, the project manager is, I'm tired of being a project manager. I'm looking for skin in the game.
And to that question about, do we have a pool of candidates? We'll get candidates that reach out to us all the time on our website. And if they have restoration experience, we're doing whatever we can to farm them out immediately. We look at past clients that we've worked with. We talk to advisors that we work with. Hey, do you have anyone in the Orlando area? This estimator has 5 years of experience. He's looking to make a move. So we don't just say, hey, no, I don't have a requisition in that area. We'll do our best to try to place that person, or at least make an effort to introduce them to clients we've worked with in the past or people that we know in that market. We get that asked all the time. Do you have any good candidates? Well, the question is we place good candidates every day. So yeah, we do have good candidates, but I'm not going to go take that good candidate I just placed and hire him for somebody else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we've heard of people doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you this. So obviously there's multiple interviews that are happening here, right? Let's say me as a restoration owner, to some degree, I'm being interviewed by you guys. You get an idea as to what position I need filled, what kind of characteristics that individual should have or that I'm looking for. And then now you've got this database and or, new people that you're reaching out to try to see if you can go ahead and play that matchmaker. Do you guys then just play matchmaker and be like, hey, by the way, we kind of found this resume, give them a shot? Or is there an interview process that you kind of do, and then the owner, if there's enough synergy there, then you patch it onto the owner? Is that how it works?
Right. So I'll take you through our process, and we'll, skip past the discovery call. We've decided what fits. We have, after the discovery call, what we call an intake call. It's actually a 30-minute at least phone call with the recruiter to learn everything we can about that owner's business, how they got their start, how long they've been in business, how many employees they have, what they're looking for, what those ideal candidate traits are, from pay to benefits, almost as if we were their HR manager working within their company that could really speak to why a candidate should want to go work for that organization. we will help write a position description for them. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I have a position description I've been posting on Indeed for years.
And it's horrible.
And it's 5 pages long, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to rewrite that, make it more advertising friendly, I guess you can say. And then at that point, once we have an approval, we have like a go live date. So the recruiter is actively sourcing and screening applicants and also sourcing passive candidates. Probably 75% of our hires are passive candidates, meaning they didn't apply directly to the job. And our screening process isn't, we got a resume, oh, he looks good, we're saying it to the client. The recruiter will actually spend 30 to 45 minutes on the phone with that candidate, filling out a screening template based on what we're looking for. Every position we hire for has some form of screening template that's used. So if that candidate seems to pass the test of what we were initially looking for, the client then is submitted their resume, cover letter if they provided one, and our screening with basically instructions. Hey, you have 24 hours to respond to us of how you want to proceed. If you want to interview that person, let us know dates and times. We're going to set up the interview for you. Or if you don't, tell us why you don't want to interview that person, what the constructive feedback is. Maybe they've already talked to the person before in the past. So,
am I hearing a dog in the background?
Oh, that's my dog, yeah.
we walk them through at least a 2 to 3 face-to-face interview process, and intertwined in that is us having the candidate do a DISC personality profile assessment. We also check their references. We help them write an offer. We help submit that offer with a consent form for a background check. So we have our own process we follow. Many times they'll say, hey, is it okay if we include this in our process, and we'll add that in there, as long as it's feasible. You know, it's not, hey, we want to wait 3 weeks before we interview that person again. That's just not.
Right, exactly. One of the next questions that I actually had for you was about the whole personality testing. I think that personality testing is rather important, which obviously you guys use that, and there's a lot of people that don't. A lot of organizations just say, it's not real, or it doesn't really work. But in you guys' experience, how have you noticed that really can move the needle and make a change for placing the right people at the right places?
It's totally helped and hurt clients. So the piece about personality assessments is really understanding the assessment as the owner or hiring manager before you can think we understand a candidate's personality, right? We've totally had clients dismiss candidates who were great because they didn't test how they wanted to on the personality. So I'm a certified DISC consultant. We use DISC. We like it because it's easy. Let's face it, we're blue collar guys, right? We're construction guys. We need something simple that's easy to understand. I don't need a 100-page report.
Right.
And as long as that 10-page report gives us the information we need, right? So understanding the personality assessment, DISC is easy to understand. And then when we DISC folks, it's just part of the picture. It's not everything, right? So many people, owners make decisions based on personality, and, they didn't test in a high C category, so I'm not going to hire them. Environment plays a huge role, right? My stepdad was a space physicist, so I grew up in a house with, literally a rocket scientist. So he was very smart. He would correct my English and correct all kinds of things, make sure I sit up straight, held my fork right. So if I hadn't have had that environment, how would I present in the world today, right? My personality is something different, but how I interact in the world because of my environment is a totally different thing. So I think understanding someone's personality is great, but you've really got to understand that particular test, if you will, before you make assumptions or conclusions.
Right. Understanding the technology that you're using is important, right? Regardless of what it is, everybody understands, pretty much everybody has a smartphone, but not everybody knows how to really harness the power of a smartphone in day-to-day business, and how to use it to automate and how to use it to generate more leads. And they're like, oh yeah, just take calls. Of course I know how to, use my stuff. Right. So it's understanding the technology, and then, taking a deep dive in that, and then understanding, okay, great. How does this technology apply to my environment, my business, my employees? I think that's a big takeaway. And on that, we're just going to go ahead and take a quick pause. We're going to thank our sponsors. Hey, Restoration Nation, as restorers, we all know the importance of proper documentation and making sure that your estimates are as tight as possible. Well, if you want to go ahead and make sure that you have the tightest estimate available, then what you need to check out is Impartial. If you head on over to impartial.io/domination, and that's the letter M, partial.io/domination. We got an amazing offer for you from our sponsors, which is over 99% off their enterprise plan. Now, you may be asking, what exactly is Impartial? Well, let me tell you why this is such amazing software. Number one, if you're already using Matterport as part of your pre and or post mitigation or any of the services that you use, what they do through Impartial Scope is it allows you to generate a carrier-worthy style estimate by taking relevant data points from your pre and post Matterport scans. Super awesome, super convenient stuff. Now, aside from that, Impartial also offers some amazing other services, such as their ability to convert estimates from Xactimate over to Symbility, as well as the added benefit of what they call Impartial Embed. And by using Impartial Embed, what this allows you, the contractor, to do is to really maximize all of the ability of your Matterport scans by embedding tags as well that are timestamped, and just allow a lot more information to be attached to the current projects that you're at, which of course, ultimately on the carrier side, eliminates a lot of the fraud and, more importantly, a lot of the back and forth. I mean, it kind of all is in the name, Impartial. It's meant for you to go ahead and provide this data, right? This real live data that you captured with your Matterport, and then provide an estimate to the carrier that really there's nothing that they could really push back on, right? So it's an amazing software. I would go ahead and recommend for you to go ahead and check out impartial.io/domination. Again, that's impartial.io/domination. We've got a really special discount code there for you, so that way you can take it a spin and see how you can make this part of your daily practice in your restoration company. Photo documentation is possibly one of the most important aspects of what it is that we do in the restoration business. Not only so that the client knows exactly what's going on, but also so that you can prove your work to insurance companies. One of the best ways that I found to go ahead and document our projects is by using Company Cam. Company Cam is an amazing app. It has so many features, everything from time-stamped and GPS located photos, individual project files, unlimited photo storage, in-app communication with your crew, a live stream of all of your projects as the photos are coming in, as if it was an Instagram feed. So from a managerial standpoint, Company Cam can help you there as well. But more importantly, it gives you the ability to protect your organization while documenting and keeping everything nice and neat. So we've got a really special offer for you. If you go to companycam.com/dominate, not only will you get your 14-day free trial, but you're also going to get the first 2 months 50% off. So again, head on over to companycam.com/dominate, get the app, and I'm sure you're going to love it. All right, guys. So we are back. So we basically covered, great, organization understands what they need to do. Now they've reached out to you. Now you guys have found that candidate, right? So it's like, it feels like we're almost getting to the finish line, but that's what it feels like. Right. But I'm sure there's a whole lot more. What's the next step, right? Once you kind of played that matchmaker and you're saying, hey, by the way, I've got this candidate, and now Rico or an organization like mine is reaching out to them, and we're playing, now it's time for us to go ahead and do the interview. Let's start with what people typically do wrong, right? As far as the hiring managers, what do they not have? What do they not have enough of? Are they, just having blind conversations? What does that process look like? And then we'll dive into, when done properly, if we were going to do this thing textbook style, what would that look like?
Right. So biggest pitfalls, I would say, is being late for an interview. Not the candidate, the client not showing up to the interview. That happens more than you think.
What? You mean contractors being late? No, never.
And look, I know things happen, but on the same token, that same client, if the candidate calls 30 minutes ahead of time knowing they're going to be 10 minutes late, they will never forget that they were 10 minutes late. But you want the candidate to forgive you for forgetting about the interview, not showing up for the interview. The other big one is 2-hour interviews. I mean, we've had candidates call us and say, man, that was great. I was there for 2 hours, first interview. So if you're sitting down with somebody for 2 hours, you're thinking, this person really likes me. I'm going to get this job. And the next phone call we get from the client, I knew in the first 10 minutes that person was not going to be fit.
Why did you interview for 2 hours?
Why are you interviewing him for 2 hours?
Right.
And, so 45 minutes to an hour tops.
Right. And this goes back to our conversation earlier about the structure.
Right.
Right.
So those are, I would say those are, really two big issues. Asking inappropriate questions. We still have that,
What are some, give me some examples of the inappropriate questions.
We at one time, this was a while ago, but we had hired for a floor covering store, and they actually looked up the candidate in their database and asked her why she hadn't purchased any flooring from them.
That's what religion she was.
What religion she was, how old you were, if you have kids. I mean, you can't ask those questions. Now, in an interview, if someone says, oh, my son, he plays soccer. I'm like, oh yeah, what grade is your son in? Like casual conversation, just to kind of gauge, those things that you want to know that you really can't ask.
Right.
But I would say those are the two that stick out.
In today's world, asking if you're vaccinated or not.
Yep.
Is that legal or not? We still don't know the answer. So I would encourage owners, don't ask that question just yet. You have to, because everything's so up in the air right now regarding that law, and then your state may be different than what the federal law says. So we've had inappropriate places where interviews have taken place. We've had automobiles. We've had a client on a treadmill doing a Zoom interview while he was doing the interview. And this is for like a branch manager role.
Yeah.
Nice.
Doing $7 million a year. So he wasn't a teeny tiny individual.
Right.
So yeah,
but he was a legend in his own mind. So it was okay. So he could just do whatever he wanted. Yeah. Because yeah. But I like how lightly you treaded around that. Like no pun intended. You're like,
yeah. But it's difficult when we're talking your business up, right? As your recruiter, here's the benefits, here's the pay, here's the culture, here's why maybe it's a good fit. Let's understand each other, right? And then it sounds great. I'd like to continue in the process. Great. And then that happens. Right? My credibility's gone. Your credibility in the marketplace for that individual's gone. So
right. And it's all about first impressions. Like first impressions mean things, right? Like it's like how you could have a bad second impression and still be okay, right? Because that because then you'll just be like, oh, he was just having an off day. It might have just been an off day, right? So that first impression is so key. So great. So these are some of the things not to do. Now let's go, and on the lighter side of things, like if you were doing it right, what should this process really look like? Like what kind of effort should a hiring manager, owner, HR person, like it doesn't matter, like what kind of effort should they be putting in place to make a candidate feel, number one, safe, secure, make them feel like, oh, okay, cool. This may just be the place that I've been looking for. What does that landscape look like?
First, your candidate should always know who they're interviewing with. If you plan on doing a panel interview, which is fine, make them aware of that. You don't want a candidate to walk in an interview with 5 other people in a conference room. Let them know you're going to be meeting with their HR manager, the ops manager, a project manager, just so they can be mentally prepared. That's key. Having your interview process in place, and that means questions that you plan on asking per position. Every company, any person we've ever talked to, when I ask a hiring manager, are there any questions you want us to ask in our screening? That way you have that information when you receive it. They always say yes. We ask this question all the time. There's always one question they ask every single candidate. So have an outline of what you're going to ask that person. Make sure if you're using a panel interview, everybody has their roles and responsibilities. Don't have your interview committee show up and then just hand them the resume. Right. Make sure they have it in advance of who they're going to be interviewing, so they've had time to review that person's background instead of coming in there blind.
So you want to keep that interview to an hour.
Yep.
Right? Once the interview is over, if you feel that you liked the candidate, it might be appropriate to give the person a tour. However, that's just something that the owner needs to decide based on that candidate, right? But what we really want to see is a debriefing on that interview right after the interview's done. So if you have a panel, walk the candidate to your front door, thank them for coming, regardless if you like them or not. That candidate may be a customer one day, right? They may have a fire or flood in their home. So thank them for their time. Let them know that you'll be in touch, or Wylander will be in touch about next steps. Go back to the room, debrief. As an owner, try not to lead your people down a path that they feel, oh, he's the owner, I better agree with him. So as the owner, say, well, guys, what did you think? The owner should share their opinion last, right? What did you think? Go around the table. I liked him, I disliked him, what did we like? I liked how he answered this question, so review your questions that were asked. If everything goes well and everyone agrees, yeah, this is a candidate that we would like to continue the process with, then bring them in for a second interview. In our process, you're calling us and saying, hey, we liked this candidate, and don't even lead us down the path, right? If you want to share concerns, share concerns. If you want to share things you like, share things you like. But say, we're going to continue down the path, what's next, right? So what we like to see are references, and we disc the person. So we do disc assessment, right? We gather those items. Did you want to add to that?
No, but I was just, one other thing too related to the questions is we've had clients lead us down the path, like 3 or 4 interviews with a candidate, and then the one reason they decide not to hire that candidate, they should have known that in the first interview. That was something they knew in the first interview. So they were ignoring their non-negotiables to take us and that candidate down that path. And it's a waste of the candidate's time and your time, frankly, to be interviewing the wrong people. It's make sure you those non-negotiables you've cleared those out in the first interview. Okay, this person has strong construction experience, but we're going to have to teach them Exactimate. We know that is probably something we can do. This person has 0 construction experience. That's probably a non-negotiable when you're looking for a seasoned project manager.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So having those SOPs and just having the time, and again, it's so comical, right? Because we all hear the same stuff over and over and over again about the importance of having stuff ahead of time. Right. Having this hiring process somewhat done ahead of time. Right. Resumes passed out, again, if you have a panel, have those passed out ahead of time. And you're like, oh man, but I could just do that tomorrow, or I'll do that when I arrive at. But then it just never works out perfectly if you don't already have a plan in place. And it just allows for perfection. And I think that it allows really the big takeaway, at least for me personally, the biggest takeaway of putting pen to paper or having it in a living document somewhere is that is your absolute best, highest way of thinking for that particular aspect. So in other words, when it comes time to actually making that hiring decision, it's non-emotional. It's, yeah, sure, there's a human element to that. I'm not going to take that away, right? Because I do believe in like human chemistry. And you can kind of, feel, hey, do I really jive with this person or not? But you're not asking a question because it just didn't feel right or you forgot. It's already been laid out, right? With your perfect plan. So just really taking the time to have all of that stuff in place is so important. And that works for all aspects of your business, not just the hiring process. Great. So now they've kind of gone through that process and they call you like, hey, Wylander, love it. Perfect candidate. Great. What do they do then? They show up for the first day of work, and inevitably that's a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah. So if provided that the references came back, the disc is great, and we're going to invite them back for a second interview, and the second interview goes well. In the second interview, we really want to address any concerns we may have had in the first, or get clarifications on questions that we had asked, right? So really would encourage 2 interviews. Try your very best not to hire on the first interview. We've had clients do that, and ultimately it almost always ends in disaster. So if the second interview goes well, then prepare the offer, right? Verbal offers are fine, but you've got to follow up with a written offer. Otherwise, it's just chatter.
You have to.
Yeah, it's key. No one's going to take you serious with verbal offers. That's old school. It's, even I'm a handshake kind of guy, and I believe if I shake someone's hand, it's a deal. But in today's world, you've got to follow up with a written offer. So let's say the candidate signs the offer, right? Well, before we even get to that part, let me back up and talk about compensation. We're going to have that conversation with you at the very beginning, because if you say you're looking for an estimator for $45,000 in Manhattan, we're not a fit. We're not going to be able to fill that role for you. So we're a wealth of knowledge, making sure that you don't overpay or underpay. And we'll always tell you, your peers are doing this. It's up to you. We've had clients say, well, I don't want to pay what my peers are paying. I want to pay a little more. Okay, that's your business. That's the beautiful part of owning our own business. But if you are here, or your peers are here, and you're offering here, I said, okay, well, why, as an estimator, would I come work for you? And you've really got to do a good job convincing me that I should take on the role, right? So compensation lines up, they sign the offer. Now we're looking at first day. We've compiled a list of what the first week should look like for every role. And their business cards had better be there. Their computer, their workstation should all be set up, not spending a day with IT, configuring email and signatures and all those things. Their cell phone should be there. Their cell phone contacts should be in there. And those are key people, right, inside the company. You've got your owner, their report, HR, whoever, right? Anything that they're going to need to be functioning the first day. And when I'm saying function, I'm not saying doing their job, but having those things complete so they can start doing their job.
Now,
if
their
that makes
stuff
sense.
is busy work.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend a day and a half with an estimator that especially has experience that could go on an estimate within a couple of days, and you've just wasted the first day
setting up email.
Setting up his email.
Right. And we've seen that time and time again. So if those things are set up, then the onboarding is starting to look appropriate. And onboarding should be a month. Not a day, not a week. Mm-hmm. It really should be a structured plan. And at the end of the day, he or she meets with their direct report and review the day. How was it? Right? The second day, how was it? Did we improve on the things that we were identifying the first day that were issues? Right? And then lo and behold, we're at Friday. Well, how was your first week? The direct report can get an understanding if this person's going to work out within a week, because they've already had 5 meetings with them. And you're going to be able to tell if this new hire is taking care of business. Right? Hey, we talked on Monday about your lack on this, and here we are Friday, you've done nothing to address it. So come Monday, back here Monday, we're going to address it, and it needs to be taken care of by Wednesday, right? So don't hang on to people that aren't doing their job. Right. You know what I mean? Don't hang on to underperformers. So that's the beauty behind a proper onboarding program, is that it really allows you to vet them properly, give them the opportunity, set them up for success.
Right. So how well orchestrated are the majority of organizations out there, or are you still running into a lot of, people that are trying to hire you and you realize that they don't really have an onboarding process in place. They don't have an interview process in place. They are setting up emails on the first day. They're just all over the place, right? Kind of scatterbrained. I mean, do you notice that more and more people are getting highly organized, or is it still, kind of shooting from the hip?
I think we see more people aware that they need to be,
Mm-hmm.
but because we're in a emergency response business, there's always one fire after another fire after another fire, right?
No pun intended, right?
Right, exactly. I would say 60% don't.
Yeah, and as a growing company, you have a smaller staff, you're still growing, you're maybe in that $1.5 million, $2 million range. Now is the time to set those up. Right. Before you're now 100 employees in. I mean, we've talked to companies that have 150 employees, and it's been a train wreck with hiring sometimes. The hiring manager doesn't return emails. We had one not show up for a phone interview, and they have dedicated HR people that those operations folks are depending on to field them people that they need to hire. So do it now, do it early in your business. And of course, as you grow, your business gets bigger, you have to review those processes yearly, all the time, because what worked for you when you were doing $1 million probably isn't going to work exactly the same when you're a $10 million company.
Well, right. That's why it needs to be, at least what I say, it needs to be like a living document of some kind, right? If you put it in a 3-ring binder and it's on a shelf somewhere, that's no longer effective, because you can't it's too much of an effort, right? There's too much friction between you going up to the bookshelf, getting the binder out, and then opening up a Word document and starting all over from scratch. It's just, it's not going to happen, right? Having some kind of a living document that really works. Well, here's one of the big questions, right? So on the onboarding side of things, is there a system and or like a philosophy that people should have to where their onboarding is somewhat automated, in the sense of, hey, look, this is the first day, right? Let's just pretend for a second that, we did the hire. Everything was set up for them perfectly, right? We made them feel like when they showed up at whatever time in the morning, let's say 9 o'clock in the morning, and they got there, they feel like they just got home, right? Here's your cell phone, here's your this, here's your that, here's your desk, here's your email, it's already set up. Like, if you show up as an employee and you're like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, we're ready to rock and roll. Like, these people are not playing. Like, I'm looking at my business cards. I'm really excited. There's no fumbling, right? Because now you've eliminated all that friction. But then you still have the training, right? You still have, the inner workings. Another big waste of time, at least in my opinion, is, and this is where I think you also get a lot of clashes of personality, is sometimes people get assigned to onboarding and they were never part of the hiring process. So that's number one, right? And they're kind of like a little bit on their high horse, they're on their pedestal. Right. You get that, or the guy's got, guy or gal who's onboarding the new hire, he's got a million other things that they got to do. And now they're like, oh man, I got this other thing, that's just taking up time in my day. And it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? So like, how important is it to have a system in place that helps to automate that? Because and I'll just leave you with this last thought, there's nothing worse than having to repeat the exact same thing 20 times. It's the worst thing in the world, and it's costing someone money. If it's the owner who's doing this for their first hire, it's costing you money because it's costing you time. If you have, someone in your office whose, job is to kind of onboard people and they have to repeat the exact same sentence, 3 times a week, you compound that over a year, like how much money did it cost the company to say the exact same thing? So, again, long-winded way of asking, is there a good system that you guys found, that you've recommended, that you've seen for this process?
Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10 for importance, it's a 10, right? Because hiring is expensive. Turnovers are very expensive. So having this document in place, let me kind of walk through what a typical onboarding plan looks like for a restoration company, right? First day, provided that all the business cards are there, the computer's set up, IT departments, blah, 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 everything's great, right? Well, the first couple hours is meeting with the HR person, going over the policy and procedures handbook. When you get paid, let's get your direct deposit set up, right? Anything HR related, right? So that relationship is established. Then the second half, or the next couple hours, is the owner or their direct hire, sitting down with them in their office. Okay, here's your work area. Let's talk a little bit about the HR experience. You understand these things in the employee handbook, our mission statement, values. Any questions about that, right? So now we're on the second person, right? So by that time, it may be lunchtime, it may not be. But for the rest of today, you're gonna go right out with our technician. I don't care what role it is, even if it's a bookkeeper, have them go right out with a technician. Because if a bookkeeper can understand what it's like for these guys sucking water at all times of day, different times of the day, they have a little bit of appreciation. But even better than that, they have a better understanding of how our company responds, how our company lays out tarps on the floor. If we do that, do we put booties on? Do we park in the driveway, or do we park at the front curb? Do we knock 5 times on the door? Do we knock twice, right? So they spend the rest of the day with the technician. Well, at the end of the day, again, their direct report hiring manager, how was your day? Any questions about anything we did today, right? Again, a bookkeeper riding with the technician. A lot of people would say that doesn't make sense, but definitely it does. The next day, you're riding with the estimator, at least half the day with the estimator, depending on how busy the estimator is. Understanding how Xactimate works, understanding how phone calls are handled with adjusters, right? And then the next day, you're dealing with contents department. You're riding out with the contents department. You're helping them pack things. So obviously they're wearing blue jeans and tennis shoes and a polo shirt or whatever shirt you have for your company. The following day, they're with maybe the project manager. So at the end of the first week, they've spent time with every department, and they really have a good flow of how things move through the business, including paperwork, right? So your project coordinator, spending a day with them. So remember, the owner typically thinks they have to spend all this time with the new hire.
Or one person.
Or one person.
Right.
And at the very beginning, I think we spent 2 hours with the owner or the direct report, right? Every day, that direct report, how was the day? Any questions, concerns? The direct report also follows up with the person they rode with. Hey, how was your day with the new hire? So that's kind of the first week. Anything on the second week that we didn't accomplish on the first week or areas of weakness, we would address those, maybe another write out. If we're hiring an estimator, then we're probably looking at spending a couple of days with your best estimator because we want to train them on what good looks like and what we're expecting, right? So that's kind of a typical onboarding plan. And again, it's a month long, right? Not say they have to write out with someone every day for a month, but we're slowly weaning them off to be independent, but constant follow-up. So when you're 30 days in as the hiring manager, if you've got a good hire or not. You're having, five meetings a week at the end of every day, you're going to know where they're at. And these meetings can be 5 minutes, they can be an hour long, just depending on your style and how in depth you want to go.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you said, everything's ahead of time. You should have a training plan for every position in your company, what that looks like. Even if they're coming from another restoration company and they know everything there is to know about everything, they still have to know how you want to do it, your process.
Right.
So,
well, and devil's advocate too, which I don't think a lot of people talk about. Having your system written down and then having someone else that's a superstar in that particular arena that you're going to hire also gives a lot of clarity for them to be like, hey, by the way, boss, you know what I noticed? I noticed this one thing, but over here, we kind of did it like this and it worked so much better. And it opens up the discussion. I mean, of course, assuming that you have the company culture where you're even open to discussions, right? Because there's a lot of organizations like, no, this is the only way to do it. But but just if you don't have it documented, if you don't have it somewhere where they can really take a deep dive, like you're not even opening up yourself to new innovative thoughts.
Right, exactly, yeah, and that's why at the beginning of today's podcast I said, if an owner is open and willing to listen, we'll work with anyone, right? When they're just closed-minded and look, I'm not budging on this, I'm only going to pay $40,000 a year in the middle of Manhattan, then we're just not a fit.
Right. So here's the biggest question. Why should anybody hire you, right? Or an organization like yours. Like if you're going to be recruiting, I can be recruiting as well. You're going to be running ads, I can be running ads as well. Like, where's the difference and where's the value?
Right. You want to take it?
So I'll start. One is we do this, our recruiters do this full time. This is what they do. If you're an owner trying to hire, you're also taking your sales management meetings, you're going on jobs, you're doing all that everything else that goes with your business. Recruiting is a full-time job. I mean, it really is a full-time effort to find the right people. It's not just slap a couple ads out there and these awesome unicorns are going to apply and want to come work for you. It's a lot of work, a lot of phone calls. It's like dating, it really is. You have to be, very, very cautious of that approach. So I would say that's key, is we have the time. That's all we're doing. We're not doing anything else except recruiting all day.
Yeah, every day. And most people, they can't afford for their HR manager to be spending 8 hours a day looking for their estimator. And also, we've been doing it a long time. We've got a lot of tricks up our sleeve, just like estimators have tricks up their sleeves in creating estimates. We know shortcuts. We know what keywords to use, Boolean searches. We know what a good resume should look like, right? We know what a good candidate should sound like because we've talked to so many. We make over 100 hires a year. And I think another part is, can you afford not to, right? So if your estimator on average does $1 million a year in revenue at 60% margin, right? He's generating $600,000 a year for you. And if you want to do the math, we can divide it on what you're losing per day by not having him in there. And our fee is much less than what you're losing in a month's period of time, in a week's period of time. Really, it's just one job. So, in the world that we're in today, when you can outsource so many things, I think recruiting is definitely something owners should outsource. Allow their HR person, if they have one, to do the HR stuff, which is in hiring, but have a full-time person looking for your business interests at all time is pretty valuable.
Right. Just having that overall, understanding of, hey, is this really where I want to spend the majority of my day? Right. Or is this where I really want to spend the majority of, one of my key players, have them sucked by 6 hours, into this like vortex of trying to find the right talent. And, was that really a good ROI for me in my organization? And the reason why I asked that question is because it's important, right? Because you can't necessarily see the forest through the trees. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, I need to hire, and you end up being reactive as opposed to proactive. And you're like, well, I'll just run an ad, or I'll just put something on Indeed, and if the stars align, maybe I get lucky. But then it's the non-visible things that start sucking away at your time and that are costing you money, right?
Right.
And just people get too fixated on, cost sometimes. They're like, well, how much? And again, we haven't even talked about what it costs, because I'm sure there's a variety there. But a lot of people sometimes just get caught up on, hey, this is kind of an expensive service, or I don't necessarily want to pay somebody to find, this key player for my company. But it's costing you that and or much more by not doing it the first time. Right.
Right. Well, and the number of conversations you have to find the right candidate, it's not like you're going to talk to two people. Let's just say you put out I had a client once who wanted to hire an admin, and he goes, look, I can put it on Indeed, and I'm going to get probably 100 resumes, but I don't have time to go through those and call those. And
well, they're not good resumes. I mean, you may get 5 out of the 100 that are worth even calling.
Well, and the other piece too is because we've placed so many people that are from outside the industry, we have a little bit of an eye when we get a resume for somebody that's outside of the industry that was like, oh my gosh, that's just like that one candidate we placed in Wisconsin. He was awesome. We're going to talk to him. And we send that information to the client, and they're like, I would have never talked to this person based on their resume.
Right.
But
you develop an ear, you develop an eye for the kind of talent that you're there, because again, why is that? Because you're doing it all day, right? It's just that repetition. You're doing it all day, which is great. So obviously we've kind of walked through the entire process of it all. If you had to sum it up all in just one or two sentences, when it comes down to, especially considering the landscape with the whole labor shortage and everything else, proactive versus reactive, should this process of hiring and finding talent for maybe not only one key role, but perhaps all of your roles, should this be a 365-day all-around marketing effort? I've talked about this on the podcast where people talk about their marketing in order to get their phone ringing for sales. Most people would agree, I have to do this every single day. When it comes down to hiring and recruiting, people are like, yeah, well, I'll do it when I kind of need it. I believe that this needs to be pretty much in line with, you need to look at it like marketing. This is a marketing effort to bring in top talent. So should people be proactive? Should people be reactive? If they are proactive, how proactive do they need to be?
Yeah, so many people use recruiters as last resort, right? Because there's a cost involved. But like I said, the money that they're spending by not having that position filled is much greater than the fee, right?
Well, it also goes back to, we tell our clients all the time, you should be recruiting all the time. I don't care if you're hiring an estimator and you have a technician that comes in your door. Don't say, oh, we're not looking for any technicians right now. You need to interview that person, let them know that we don't have any open roles right now. However, we want to keep your information on file. When we're recruiting for a role like a construction project manager, I'll run into a mitigation PM. I will talk to that person every single time and send them to the clients. And our clients who have this approach of, I need to be recruiting all the time, they'll talk to them. The ones that are closed-minded saying, oh, I have those roles filled, they won't even talk to the candidate, which shocks me, because in that particular role, a MIT PM, they're one of the hardest roles that we fill in the US, all markets. It doesn't matter what state, whether you're a big company or small company. So that's, always be recruiting,
Right.
always looking for talent.
Not only the open roles, right, that say Wylander's working to fill for you, but if we find a mitigation guy and we're looking for a PM, but we find a mitigation person, you may have somebody that needs to be replaced, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may be fully staffed, but you don't even know what you're saying no to, right? So talk to this person, see if they're better than the worst that you have. And if they are, maybe you consider a change.
Absolutely. Awesome. So if someone wanted to go ahead and reach out to you guys because they want to fill some spots, like where should they go? How can they connect?
What they need to do is, the bat signal that you put up in the sky.
Right.
No, our website, www.wylander.com. We're also on Facebook, Wylander. So reach out however you'd like. You can connect with us on Facebook or directly on our website. Email us.
And I will go ahead and put a link to their website and their social media handles and all of that good stuff in the show notes below. So go ahead and check that out. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and look at the video description, and all of their links and all their pedigree is going to be there as well.
Awesome.
Anywhere else you were going to say? Because I kind of
so you can email us info@wylander.com.
Okay, cool. And then also, by the way, our Twitter is, that's amazing. Awesome. Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that hiring is one of these topics that, a lot of people don't want to talk about until they really, really need to fill that spot. And there's a whole science and a whole art to that particular role of finding good quality talent and then onboarding them successfully. And I think that, within the short amount of time that we had, we were able to go ahead and unpack here quite a bit. And hopefully the viewers and the listeners can go ahead and take some of this and start implementing some of these strategies, maybe start getting their processes in place. And as always, if you guys, Restoration Nation, if you need to go ahead and, find some talent, go ahead and reach out, to our lovely guest here. Just hit them up on Facebook, hit them up on their website. And, yeah, guys, thank you so much again for having, being on the show. I mean, it was tons of fun.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Awesome. Restoration Nation, stay tuned for the next one. Let's go.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Hook up with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Restoration Domination to catch video interviews, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content. And follow your host at Rico Garcia Jr. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.